Hi guys, so Keir Starmer and Boris Johnson clashed during Prime Minister's questions on Wednesday, and while Starmer did up his attacks, I don't think he really landed any major punches. There were some interesting comments made by the leader of the opposition and the usual tripe by the Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Now I want to show you this part of the exchange where Starmer highlights that Johnson is weak and his MPs are abandoning him, forcing him to rely on the Labour Party for support to get important measures through the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, we all hope that combined with the booster programme, Plan B will be sufficient to prevent the NHS from being overwhelmed. Nobody wants to see further restrictions, but the Prime Minister has quite rightly not ruled anything out. So can I take this opportunity to make clear to the Prime Minister that if further votes are needed to save lives and protect the NHS, Labour MPs will follow my leadership and we will always put the national interest first. Can I ask the Prime Minister to get his house in order so he can say the same about the members behind him?
Now, this is a response to typical language from the Conservative Party that the Labour Party is in disarray, is disunited, when in reality, yes, there is a lack of unity within the Labour Party, but there are real deep divisions within the Conservative Party at the moment. And we saw that on Tuesday where 100 MPs, most of them members of the Conservative Party, voted against the government. So Boris Johnson's party is divided, clearly divided. And Keir Starmer so far has most of his MPs on board.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, if further measures are needed, as the House will understand, if further regulation is needed, of course this House will have a further say. As for following his leadership, Mr. Speaker, they wibbled-wobbled over Plan B, they wibble-wobbled over quarantine, and if we'd listened to him, Mr. Speaker, we wouldn't even have the vaccine rollout because we would have remained in the European Medicines Agency.
Now, we know this is crap, and what about this wibble-wobble? He's not the one who's in charge, you're the one who's in charge, but I'm here to correct the record for Boris Johnson, because Boris Johnson is either incapable of correcting the record, or Boris Johnson doesn't give a crap about the record, because this is the truth.
We have been able to authorise the supply of this vaccine using provisions under European law which exist until the 1st of January. So our speed or our progress has been totally dependent on the availability of data in our rolling review and the rigorous assessment and independent advice we have received. So I hope that clarifies the point about the European relationship.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. Do you now understand, Boris Johnson?
We wouldn't have opened up on July the 19th, Mr. Speaker. We would have remained in lockdown. That's the reality, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, let me put that straight back in its box.
I really wish he had done that, put him back in his box and said, Prime Minister, would you like to correct the record here? Because you have lied again about this issue that has been debunked on I don't know how many occasions. But unfortunately, he doesn't.
The Labour Party showed the leadership yesterday that the Prime Minister lacked. Mr. Speaker, if it wasn't for Labour votes, his government wouldn't have been able to introduce vital health measures we need to save lives and protect the NHS.
Now, I don't know if this is actually true, because if we look at how the vote went on Tuesday, you can see there were 126, it was actually 100, I think it was 100 MPs from the Conservative Party that voted against the government. But 126 voted against, 369 voted, including the Labour Party. Now, if the Labour Party had abstained and didn't vote against the government, then it would have gone through. But if the Labour Party had joined the rebellion, there's a chance, a pretty good chance, that this measure would not have gone through. So yes, thanks to the Labour Party and Keir Starmer, Boris Johnson got his measure through. Now, I would like to flip this for a moment. Imagine if Jeremy Corbyn had been in power, or Keir Starmer had been in power, and they were trying to put through measures like this. Do you think the Conservatives would come to his aid? Jeremy Corbyn or Keir Starmer as Prime Minister? Probably not.
So weak is his leadership. His own MPs were wrong to vote against basic public health measures. But I can understand why they're angry with him. After all, the Health Secretary said this summer that relaxations of restrictions were irreversible. They weren't. Only last week, the government...
Order. I've been tempted by both of you a little bit too much. Think it's Christmas. That's the only reason you're going to remain Prime Minister.
Sorry, I just had to laugh at this. Because it's Christmas, you can remain.
Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, only last week the government was saying Plan B measures were not required. They are. Just like the rail revolution for the North. No one will have to sell their homes for social care, just like no tax rises. It's overpromise after overpromise until reality catches up. Does the Prime Minister understand why his own MPs no longer trust him?
Mr. Speaker, there he goes again. He comes to this House pompously claiming that he wants to rise above...
Pompous? Wow, Boris Johnson calling someone pompous.
Party politics and support the efforts of the nation in delivering the vaccine rollout, and then he talks endlessly about party politics and plays political games. I think what the people of this country can see is as a result of what this government has done, with the decisions we've taken, the tough decisions that we've taken to deliver which he ducked, Mr. Speaker, to deliver the fastest vaccine rollout in Europe, and now the...
Okay, obviously I'm here to correct the record because Boris Johnson's not going to correct the record. You can see here, this is from the 11th of December, 2021. The United Kingdom is here, but there are European countries ahead of the UK when it comes to the rollout of the vaccine. Fully vaccinated, okay? So when Boris Johnson continues to say, oh, yes, the fastest rollout in Europe, no, he's lying, because we have Germany, France, Sweden, Finland, Italy, the Netherlands, Belgium, Ireland, Denmark, Spain, Malta and Portugal ahead of the United Kingdom. But that's okay because it's just the House of Commons and Boris Johnson can lie his arse off in the House of Commons.
Fastest booster rollout. We now have, Mr. Speaker, the fastest growing economy in the G7.
And once again, more lies. This is from CNN. It says here on the 12th of November, UK recovery still lagging over other G7 economies as growth slows. And this is not just CNN talking. Where did they get the information from? It says here, UK GDP growth slowed between July and September, leaving the economy still around 2% smaller than it was before the pandemic and trailing the economy of in other G7 nations. So once again, lies from Boris Johnson. It goes on to say the Office of National Statistics, okay, it's not somebody pulling something out of their behind, said Thursday that services drove growth in the quarter, led by spending on accommodation and food. But the wholesale and retail trade shrunk by 2.5%, hurt by weak consumer spending. Manufacturing output also fell slightly. The economy is suffering and it's lagging other G7 economies. So Boris Johnson lying again.
More jobs today, 500,000 more jobs today than there were when the pandemic began.
Yes, the economy, employment has returned to pre-pandemic levels, but the economy is struggling. And there are still staff shortages because of Brexit. Partly because of the pandemic, but mainly because of Brexit. So yes, there's full employment, but there isn't enough staff available to do the jobs that are required because the economy has shrunk. So once again, we have Boris Johnson and his tripe, Boris Johnson and his lies in the House of Commons, and he's not been challenged. Why isn't he being challenged? Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?